Hello, welcome to Steven Speak, Series 2, Episode 19. Can't believe it's been nearly a year since I've been doing this podcast. It's quite insane. Still feeling good about it, though. I hope you are too, and thank you very much for listening. And today we're going to be talking about teachers. Welcome to Steven Speak, the podcast. Unscripted prattle on everything and nothing. Thank you very much for joining me today on Steven Speak. Yeah, teachers. When I say teachers, I mean anyone that imparts knowledge, really. So, obviously, nursery teachers, school teachers, high school teachers, college teachers, university tutors, professors, doctors. Anyone, and people that train you at work as well. You know, these people are teachers as well, and they have a bloody hard job, especially trying to teach an adult to do something. Especially sometimes people that are older than you as well. So I'm encompassing all of these people, and I'm not going to focus on the negative today. So I'm only going to focus on positive experience. Hopefully, may drift off occasionally. You know me. I want to focus on the positive influence that I've had through my learning life, and we'll probably focus on some negative ones in a separate one, because I think everyone's had a bad teacher or a poor experience of learning, and that's not always the person. It's not, I don't think people deliberately go out to be bad teachers, bad knowledge givers, however you want to word it. But it can just be a clash of characters. I've been on courses before as an adult in my working life, and I think sometimes it's just that you just haven't got along with the person. That person could just be, someone that has a class of personality with you. So you don't really take on board what they're saying, and they don't really take on board what you're saying, and vice versa. So. And it just goes around, and you end up thinking that they're a bad teacher when they're not, and they end up thinking you're a bad student when probably you're not. So that's kind of what today's going to be about. One of my earliest memories of a good teacher was back in infant school. I remember I believe she was like a classroom assistant, and her teacher, the teacher of the class, and the classroom assistant, let's say, get the words right. And I don't know if to name names or not, to be honest. Should I name names? Sorry, I'm messing with a piece of paper here, and it's not even to write stuff down. I've just got oil on my hands from my. I've got like a slidey in and out drawer where my keyboard sits, and I just touched the edge of it and got oil over my fingers. So I don't edit anything, as you know. I just prattle on about crap. Well, hopefully crap that you like. Anyway, should I name names? I don't see there's any harm. It's a positive thing, so yeah. So, I can't remember the teaching assistant's name, which is really bad of me. I don't know why I can't recall her name, but she was lovely. I think maybe she did tell me off sometimes, because I talk a lot. I used to talk a lot, which may surprise you. But the actual teacher was called Mrs. Sims, SIMMS. And she was just like so lovely and so encouraging, and probably really blossomed my love of books at a very early age. I would say like that's probably like reception class or something. It's the first class. Is that the first class you come out when you finish nursery? I remember being very, very young, and my memories of her classes, and it's probably something to do with the curriculum as well, and how it was delivered and all this. But my memories of her classes over that year are really, really, really clear. I also remember peeing myself in one of her classes, which is a separate story completely, and being really embarrassed, but she was amazing about it. But yeah, her classes were and still really, really stick in my brain. I remember doing creative writing in that class, and I wrote a book. It's probably where my love of like writing and creativity in that sense comes from. But she was always just so encouraging. When she read books, she was always explaining to you what it meant, and I remember this so well. We used to sit around in a little classroom. There was like a little side classroom. It had a curtain that divided it, and that was like where we went for reception to like take her names. And it was also it was like a chill out area as well. So if you'd done your work, you could go and sit in there and read a book. But it was where she also read books to us. And I remember really clearly her reading George's Marvelous Medicine. A lot of Roald Dahl, to be honest. George's Marvelous Medicine, James and the Giant Peach, and stuff like that. And I hope they don't get censored. Like, I know things in the past, but come on. It was written when it was written, and that's it. Anyway, that's a different subject as well. Yeah, so I remember that really clearly, how she used to just kind of talk on a level with you, as if, how I felt she used to talk to me like I was older than I was, and she kind of treated you how you behaved. So if you behaved sensibly and like an adult, and she treated you as such. I think I've kind of done that with children myself. If they're behaving and stuff, you kind of treat them with that respect and give them that little boost in confidence, and treat them maybe a little bit older so they feel a bit more special. And I've definitely carried that through. Yeah, but she was just ace. She was just really ace. And I remember she used to wear what are they called? It's why they look like it looks like a dress, but it's actually trousers. She used to wear them all the time. I don't know why that bit sticks in my head, but that does stick in my head. And then the teaching assistant that she had, she was kind of like more of, don't get me wrong, Mrs. Sims could shout when she wanted to, but the teaching assistant was one that kind of did the general kind of getting people in line. I remember really clearly, like, doing some basic wiring in her class, like, just connecting 2 wires up to a battery and making a light up. I remember making a board game, and we had to use plaster of Paris because the theme we picked was like caveman dinosaurs and stuff, and we had to make a plaster of Paris cave because that was part of the game. It was so fun. And I remember making say books and making the tie-dye covers. Yeah, it was just an amazing class, and she, I think, really instilled confidence in me, because, and I think anyone that knows me would probably be surprised sometimes to hear how I speak on here, but I'm not the most confident person, even though I come across as it. Like, I'm not the most confident. I think I'm reasonably clever, and I think I can do stuff, and I have ability, but I don't ever really rate myself. And I think she saw something in me, and always used to encourage me. And she also taught me to teach others as well, which I think is the biggest point here. I was clever enough that I used to finish my work quite quickly, and a long time before the other students. And I'm not like doing that to show off. That's just how it was. If I understand something, I grasp it really quickly, and I'm away. If I don't, it's kind of a struggle. But I used to fly with work in her class, and I think it's because how she treated us as well. So she allowed me, to a degree, probably under heavy supervision, which I wasn't really aware of, to go around and help the other kids. And that really, really helped me, because I felt I like to teach people, I like to talk, and I like to teach people, and I like to help people, so it kind of like really appealed to my nature, and I'm presuming that she saw that in me and thought, I'll nurture that a little bit. And yeah, and I can't really remember any of the I remember the teachers, but none of them really stand out to me as being like put on a pedestal for me. But Mrs. Sims definitely was. And if you're out there somewhere in the world still, Mrs. Sims, thank you so much. You were an ace teacher, and I'm sure you touched the hearts of thousands of kids. And if you encouraged them half as much as you did me, then I know they're out there doing some successful things, and I'm sure look back on you with very fond memories. But yeah, it's peculiar that these people that are just doing an everyday job really have such an influence on society, and I think people forget that. Like, it's not an easy job to be a teacher, and I've never done it, but in jobs that I've had to be a mentor. I am a mentor currently in my current job, and it's very difficult to, especially when you've got a whole class of people, to try and get your message across to maybe 30 different minds. Because, like, let's face it, we're all a little bit different. We're all thinking a little bit different about things. So it's such a hard job to convey what you're thinking or what you're trying to teach to all these different minds, like be it children or adults or teenagers. And sometimes I think it's more difficult for teenagers and adults, because teenagers are in that rebellious stage where they think they know everything. Adults are too set in their ways and think they know everything. But then younger children are super impressionable. So that's kind of important there. You know, what you teach them, they'll soak up and probably take with them for the rest of their lives. So you've got to pretty much make sure that you're saying the right stuff and you're installing the right things and getting things right, you know? There's nothing worse than, like, saying a fact to someone and someone correcting you and you being wrong and you've carried it with you for 20 years and you think, oh my God, like, that's, you know, your belief system gets chucked out the window a little bit for that subject matter. But yeah, she was a great influence on me. Yeah, it's just really, it makes me smile when I think of her, basically. And now moving through, like, through the other years, there's no one really that stands out to me, and I swapped schools in junior school. I would like to say again because I was really clever, but I wasn't really getting on that school. I think I was getting a bit distracted, and I'd read a lot of the books there, and it was actually the teachers at that school said, like, move to another school with a better, like, with a different curriculum. They'd have a different library, because I was super into reading, and I'd literally read everything in the school. Of interest, at least, anyway. I'm not saying I read everything, but that's kind of what was inferred to me. And I did really love reading. Again, because I used to finish my work so soon, I would do my home reading in class, and then I'd go to the library and sit in the corner and read books. And yeah, I'm sure that really annoyed the teachers, to be honest. Because then it was getting to the point where Steve wanted to go read that book, and I was like, I've read it, sound like a frog. Yeah, so I ended up changing schools. So I used to go to a school in Crewe called Underwood West, and that's where I went to nursery and junior school. I also sometimes used to go to Broad Street Nursery in Crewe, because my mum worked there, so occasionally I had to swap to that one. Yeah, so when I changed schools, I changed junior schools, I had to make friends, but it was, I don't remember any teachers that specifically stood out for being super, super good. There was teachers that were nice and pleasant, but I remember that school as a lot of the teachers being disciplinarians and getting on at you, and I don't know, it's being supportive but in a more authoritative way. Maybe that's when you start going up junior school, that's what they have to start to do to prepare for high school, I don't know. But going into high school, my relationships with my teachers there, on the whole, was really, really positive as well. And I had a few favourites, but the big thing with high school, because as I started high school in 1995, yes, I'm that old, it was my brother's leaving year, so he left in the May 95, and I started in the September, and so all the teachers kind of knew of me, maybe had met me at parents' evenings if I had been with my mum and dad at their parents' evening for my brother. But it was really strange, and this might be a separate, complete one as well, but how there was some teachers that really loved him, and the majority of them disliked me, which I found bizarre, because you think that even though my brother we're super similar, but we are, like, uniquely different as well. But how much they kind of disliked me was, for me, I don't think was relative to how much they liked him. I never really understood that. And I think I'll explore that in a separate episode, maybe with the bad teachers one. But yeah, it was just really surprising to me, because I went to school and hearing these teachers that he raved about, like, I didn't like, because they kind of didn't like me. But I had a lot of teachers through the years, and a couple that stood out were, we had a religious education teacher, and she was just lovely. She was just very open and just a lovely woman, and she was called Mrs. Carey. And she was just a lovely lady. She was always there to help you and look after you, and very encouraging again, very open with the way she taught things. Quite hands-on, like, would bring, like, religious things into the class, like food to taste and things like that. You know, really to get the learning home, because when you can talk about Judaism, but then she'd bring the food of pass over in that either she'd made or a friend had made. I have no idea. But as we were learning about it, we'd be eating the food, and it would kind of get into your brain a bit because you associate the eating with the learning. Brilliant technique. There was a drama teacher called Mr. Barber, and he was fantastic. He used to let us call us by his first name, which was Keith, but not when other teachers around. If you earned enough respect from him, you could call him Keith, but just in the lesson. It was like a drama lesson thing. And he was fantastic. He was incredibly shouty when he wanted to be, because he had very strict rules. But within them, if you kept within them, he was like the most chill teacher. And he could get he had a good knack of getting the really naughty children to engage with drama. Because it's not very cool, is it? To get in front of people and do a monologue or to interact or, pretend. Let's face it, you're pretending to do stuff. It's like being a child again, in some sense. And he could literally get some of the I don't want to say roughest, but that's really the only way I can say it really. But like the roughest, hardcore, disruptive children to actually engage and do stuff with vigor as well, which was amazing. They really excelled in his class, and yeah. He was head of year at one point as well, and he left, and it was kind of a bad time when he left. It was in the school. I think the school felt like quite a lot. I know the kids did. But I think the ones that stood out for me, because I was very into music, so I've done a couple of episodes on music, but I think that for me, I had a music teacher, and I think I touched on this in another episode, that I had a music teacher, Mr. Walsh, and he was I just really enjoyed his company, as a fellow musician, and he treated me as a student. Like, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like we were mates, but we were kind of mates, and kind of like the Mr. Barber situation in drama, but with a kind of... We used to jam together and stuff like that, and I used to sing, and he used to play piano, and he let me do the whole teaching thing as well, because I was having private music tuition, and it was up to a certain reasonably good level, to be honest, at the time. I was probably like a grade 7, grade 6, grade 7, maybe grade 8 on the old organ, which I just transferred the skills to playing piano in part. But he would let me go around and help people sight read music and teaching the music and timing and stuff like that. So again, because I could finish the work he'd set so quickly, because maybe the work was, right, learn this piece of music, and I could literally just sight read it first time, and he'd come and listen. He'd literally come over to me and go, "Can you play that?" And I'd play it, and he'd go, "Yeah, that's fine." So the rest of the lesson, I'd either kind of doss around, or say doss around. I would just practice my music and just play some stuff. He'd sometimes go and get me some music to play, or I would be like a teaching assistant. And again, just like Mrs. Sims, that really gave me a boost in high school, because I wasn't, again, the most confident kid. I looked very, very young for my age, which I think I've said to you several times over these podcasts. Like, when I was 16, I looked like a 10-year-old. Like it was, chunky face, puppy fat, voice hadn't broke, So that was a confidence thing. It was something that I was good at and I could share and be confident in, because I wasn't necessarily as confident in my own skin as some other kids that were going through puberty and were getting growth spurts and having girlfriends. And don't get me wrong, I had a girlfriend or two, but it wasn't in the same way. I was cute Stephen, not the hunky football player, etc. So yeah, it gave me a bit of confidence to know that these things I was good at, like drama and music, and I could use my knowledge to pass on things. And you quickly learn how difficult it is to teach, as how to get your brain thoughts into someone else's head to enable them to do the thing you're trying to teach. And it is really difficult, and it's trying to think about what are the fundamentals I'm trying to teach, what's their level, what level I'm trying to get them to. And it's hard when you're already accomplished at something to kind of manage their expectations of how quickly they'll be able to get to your level. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. And currently, obviously, we've got the strikes going on for the teachers' pay and all that jazz. And I can completely understand like where they'd be coming from. I do rail safety talks in schools, and I don't mind standing up in front of kids. But it's a bit different when you're there every day. As a visitor to a school, I think you kind of garner a bit more respect for that like hour, half an hour that you're in front of them for. And but yeah, it's always something I've been interested in is like being a teacher or training and stuff like that. It's always interested me because I don't think there's anything more important than passing on knowledge and giving people the skills to function in no matter what they're doing, whether it's just in daily work, in life, or for a specific task or subject matter. I think it's a very special thing to be able to do, and at some point I may venture into that realm. Who knows? I do enjoy that aspect of my life on occasion when the chance comes to educate, let's say. Yeah, and I think the whole high school thing, I had a couple of other really good teachers as well. My geography teacher was amazing, Mr. Woolley. Really, really nice chap. Again, quite a disciplinarian when he wanted to be, but again, if you stayed on the right side of him, and you did your work, and you were true to yourself, he was an absolute blast, really funny. And you don't always see that side of teachers, do you? I think that's sometimes a lot of the rules that come in about how children and adults in schools have to interact, and I think sometimes it can be too rigid. These lines are drawn in the sand, and I don't know whether it's improved or whether it's got worse with all the rules we have nowadays for child's safeguarding. But I just feel that when I was at school, like the teachers just knew how to behave, like, and there were still rules there, like not touching the children, obviously, like not hugging them and stuff like that. We were starting with that kind of whole kind of, I'll call it nonsense, because I think you've got to trust the people that you give that job to trust them to know the boundaries. It's a difficult one, isn't it? But yeah, my teachers are always very good at like gauging that trust level in the students with, if I do this for you, you've got to do this for me, and if you don't, then you're shit out of luck, basically. Like, I am the teacher, I am the authority figure, I'm the one with knowledge, you need to listen to me. But they also let us have some feedback as well. They did. It wasn't just a one-way street. They also let us have feedback and that chance for the opportunity to talk and give our viewpoints across. I mean, don't get me wrong, we were still children, so it wasn't always listened. But at least to give us the opportunity that we felt like we were being listened to. And I don't know. I feel like that maybe doesn't exist anymore. Maybe I'm wrong. Like, I've not been a student in a school, which would be weird if I was, being 39, but I've not seen that, how they get taught nowadays, to see, and technology has moved on so much now. Like, it always shocks me when I do the rail safety talks, how many kids like have iPads at the tables, and there's massive like projector screens, touchscreen projector screens, and all that. It's crazy. But I'll quickly fast forward a few years, and go into the world of work. Now, I've had two exceptional people train me on the railway. Specifically, one reasonably close to the start of my career, and one in the last couple of years. And the first one was Robin, and he taught me how to signal trains. Basically, when I first joined the world of signalling on the railway. You have to go to a signalling school. It sounds hilarious, but it's literally a training centre that teaches you how to get a train from A to B as a signaller safely. And they go through all the rules, and they teach you how to do it in all these different ways that technology allows. From the old school Victorian version, which we still use today on the railway, to the more modern electronic way of doing things. I'm trying to simplify it so I don't sound too nerdy in the old train department. But yeah, he was amazing. He was very down to earth, extremely knowledgeable, and he used to have an innate ability to know when people were struggling and to recap things without you having to ask, and he would just recap the exact things that you were struggling on. And don't get me wrong, he used to ask sometimes, and sometimes he'd come for a brew with us and just stand chatting, and he'd find the way to relax us enough to then pose a question. Right, what did you find hard today? And we would answer, and then he would quickly go through the stuff, and the next day we'd have a recap, and it'd be all good, and everyone on that course passed. And even some of the people who were super struggling with, like, the course content and struggling with education, because some of them were a little bit older. I was, like, 20 years old at the time. Was I? Yes, 20 I was, yes. So I was a little bit younger, not been out of education for too long, but there was people, like, in the 40s and 50s, and I think one of the chaps was in his 60s. So yeah, so massive. And Robin was amazing, like, absolutely incredible guy. And a great laugh, and just an all-round good chap. And the second person is someone from a more recent time in my learning life, and it was a course I had to go on when I became a manager on the railway in the last couple of years. And her name's Fiona, and she took a course to basically develop management, to see things in your staff, and pretty much what I've been talking about, know yourself and know your staff, because you can't know your staff until you know yourself. It was kind of very much like that, and it was all about learning what sort of person you are, introvert, extrovert, and then trying to gauge what the person you're speaking to is, and then trying to bridge that gap. And I must admit, when I first went on the course, I'd been on quite a lot of courses, and Sarah hadn't been very well, and there was a few things going on in personal life, and I did not want to be on that course. And I kind of said so in the class as well, I think. And by, I think, lunchtime or the first break, Fiona had completely taken away my fears of the course. And I just knew that it was going to be one of the best courses I've ever been on. And it still stands as one of the best courses I've ever been on. Like, maybe potentially not for the content of the course, but just for Fiona and her amazing talent for facilitating and educating. And I gush about her quite a lot to my wife, and if she hears this, she'll probably be a bit embarrassed, but Fiona, I've told you enough, you're amazing, and the world's a better place for you, to be honest. Yeah, she made me have a few epiphanies during that course, and one of them was, I say sorry quite a lot, and one of them was, she said, like, don't apologise, say thank you. And I was like, I don't know what you mean. She says, well, if you're late for a meeting, don't say sorry for being late. Thank the people there for waiting. Don't say sorry for waiting. Say thank you for waiting. And I was like, what? That's amazing. That's such a good idea. And I never really thought about that ever, to be honest. I never thought that would be a thing. But the whole course was an absolute delight, and I got so much out of it in the end. I embraced it, and I came out of it a lot stronger person with a different view on life. And I think that might have been kind of the start of seeing that, my brain did work a little bit differently. Probably without knowing that was the start of it, to be honest with you. But I think that might have been the start of, like, the whole, maybe the ADHD / Asperger's / autism kind of, I don't always think the same way as people, and that's okay. And I have the skill to bridge that gap. So thank you, Fiona, for that. And on that note, which is nice and positive for once, I'm going to leave it there. So I just want to say thank you to anyone that's been a teacher, because I think it's an amazing craft. And if you are a teacher, don't be downhearted. Just keep on. Like, people appreciate your efforts and the knowledge that you can pass on, and the skill that takes. So until next time, take care of yourselves, and I'll speak to you all soon. You've You've been listening to Stephen Speak the podcast. Thanks for listening to my unscripted prattle on everything and nothing. Visit stephenspeak.com for updates, information, and my blog. You can follow more updates on social media at StephenSpeakPC. Thanks very much, and I'll speak to you soon.